I'll admit that I failed many times during the 15 years that I was trying to do this. What frustrated me was I could not understand why everybody who worked for me would not automatically want to have an entrepreneurial spirit. Why wouldn't you want to treat this business as if it was your own? This is how you're getting paid. And there were all kinds of incentive opportunities that nobody took advantage of. Why wouldn't you want to come to a job where you got to be authentic and you got to have a level of integrity? But no, you're going to try to beat me with the number of smoke breaks that you put on your time card. Or you're going to tell me that you showed up at the video shoot at 9 a.m., but the guy that you were with said you didn't show up till 9:45. You look at goofy little things like that and you say, you've got a larger issue going on if that's how you want to approach the person that is employing you and paying you and helping you live a life, keep a roof over your head and all that kind of thing. So I had to come to terms with understanding that everybody was not going to live up to what my interpretation of integrity was. And I go into this a little bit in the Red Apples way as well. One of our core values was live for what you love, work to make a difference. And I was creating all kinds of opportunities for my staff to participate in these company things that we would go out into the community and do. And participation was horrible. And the first question always was, are we getting paid? It's a Saturday morning. You wanted to do a 5K that you chose to sponsor. You didn't consult with us on that. I'm like, I shouldn't have to consult with you on whether we're going to sponsor this 5K or not. Would love for you guys to participate. It'll be fun. It'll be team building. Are we going to get paid? No, you're missing the point. What I came to understand, though, was that they had their own causes, their own beliefs, their own passions outside of work. That actually I did hire the right people because they did have that servant's heart. They did have that loving heart. It just wasn't manifesting in the areas that I wanted it to, which didn't make them bad people. So those were some of the tug of wars that I faced along the way in trying to address some of these things.
So how did you actually change it?
So what I attempted to then do was I respect the fact that you have passions and purposes beyond the four walls of this office. How can I help support you? Tell me what you're interested and involved in, and I would love to show up for you. I would love to match your financial donation if you're going to donate to whatever. And ironically, in very, very rare instances, they never took advantage of that. And I never understood that either. Part of it, I think, had to do with perhaps a level of privacy. I don't want you to know what I'm investing my money into or donating my money to. I don't want you to know how much I'm donating. If I'm only donating $10 to something, are you, Mr. Owner of this business, going to perceive that as being too cheap? Right. Yeah. So I had to kind of understand for myself and come to terms with that everybody was not going to be the way I wanted them to be. But as long as they had that as part of their DNA, I was okay with it. And then I did hire the right type of person, and that was manifesting in their world.
Yeah, you have the people who are the diehards for the company and want to do all the things and are very much aligned and are more or less drinking the Kool-Aid of whatever it is that you're doing, right? And then you have the people who, and there's different balances of that. People want to build a life outside of that that's something different, but can still be huge contributors. So how do you navigate that tension, I guess, between those two things? How did you navigate that aspect for yourself, internally? Was that a hard thing to balance or navigate?
It was hard because, again, you look at it and you say, the life I'm living seems so obvious. Why wouldn't you want to match it? Which was incredibly arrogant on my part and very narrow-minded. And I lacked an understanding of how other people perceived those core values in their own world and their own approach to life. My other challenge was we are in a very small market. We're about an hour outside of Orlando, right? So we didn't have a really deep talent pool. So I found myself having to make some compromises. Later on, as the company continued to grow, my mindset changed, and I really started looking for people with certain work ethics and certain types of personality. And I understand that you have no knowledge whatsoever about how to write a script or how to shoot a video or how to lay out a print ad or how to design a website. I can teach you those things if you have the commitment and the DNA and the honesty to say, I'm willing and I'm interested in doing this. I think what you guys do is really cool, and I want to be a part of it. Those are the people that I started to recruit probably in the second half of the company's history.
How did you go about finding those people? Because I hear that a lot from business owners where it's okay, cool. We want to focus more on people who are the right culture fit and the right DNA
Right.
and have that go-getter mentality. But when I'm looking at it from an employee standpoint, it's like there are a few companies that are like, hey, if you're a go-getter and da-da-da, then like, let me pay you $100,000 a year to do an editing job, right? It's like
Right.
you usually need some level of the skill being involved or whatever that part is. So how do you actually go about like finding that talent or within that spectrum of things?
What was cool was that we reached a point where we started to develop a reputation in the community. People started to come to us. They would see us out at events. They would see our work product out on social media or digital media or whatever the case may be. And they would inquire to us, what kind of opportunities do you have? I don't have any experience in video production, but what kind of opportunities do you have? My responsibility, what experiences do you have? And they start reading their resume to me, and I'd stop them and I'd say, no. What kind of life experiences do you have? That's really what I'm interested in at this point. So it was a matter of me trying to figure out early on during that very initial conversation that usually wasn't even an interview. Those are the conversations that I would enjoy having to see if those people would have the right personality, the right DNA to match who we were, and being able to teach them the skills that were going to be necessary to be successful at Red Apples Media. I went through a period of time, kind of a controversial period, where I did away with pay increases and put everybody basically on a bonus structure that was tied to the success of the business. And I ran the numbers and I said, look, the bottom line is you are going to make more money this way, but this was my effort to try to get them to be more entrepreneurial, which we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
If you took more ownership in the business, then you should get more out of the business, more than just your standard 3 or 4%, pay increase each year just because you've been here for another year. Like, are you really bringing 3% or 5% more to the business because you got better at what you did? Or is there just this annual expectation you're going to get more money? I tried that for about a year and a half, and it did not go well. They absolutely made more money, but the thing that I did not recognize was that it made it very difficult for them to plan. How do I know whether I can buy a car this year if I don't know how much I'm going to be bringing home each month? Because the bonuses were based at the mid-year and at the end of the year. And the end of the year was always the biggest one because we could step back in December and go, okay, here's what our total success and profit was for the year. I'm dividing it up. Here's somewhere between 12 and 15% of what you were making, as opposed to if I had just given you 3%, for your annual increase. Yeah. But it was a very foreign way for people to be able to manage their own expenses. How do you plan for a vacation if you don't know? Do I plan to go to Disney for a week in December if I don't know how much my bonus may or may not be? But at least if I know what my 3 or 4 or 5% was each year, I can plan around that number.
So
the intention was good, but it backfired in large part because even the financial side, there was a lack of entrepreneurial way of looking at things. I changed it to a quarterly structure, which I thought was going to make things a little bit more predictable for them, but the number wasn't as big. So the perception of, and I'll make these numbers up, at the end of the year, you got a $10,000 bonus is sexier than $2,500 at the end of March, right? So the perception of what those dollars meant to them. So I think there was probably a balance in there. I did go through a period where I tried to create individual performance type bonuses, but the metrics on that was very, very difficult for what we did and how we did it. Like, how do you look at an editor and say, if you could edit that piece 6 hours faster, I'll give you an extra $100. Like,
and you spend all your time doing analytics of your commission structure versus like actually doing the work and getting paid and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah.
But it was eye-opening for me to kind of take that step back because, as I said, my pay each month was unpredictable. And so for me to say, look, you at least have 95% of your salary is predictable. You know how much you're going to get with each paycheck based on the hours that you're working. Here's your swing in there. Here's that 5%, which could be really great. Or, guys, we had a rough month, and you know that as well as I do. You weren't going out on as many video shoots. You weren't creating as many websites. You can tell we had a slower month for whatever the reason was. The bonus just isn't as big. And now I'm a bad guy because I didn't turn out a bonus, but I was still paying myself at the end of the month. During COVID, I took about a 30% pay cut. I made a commitment that I said, look, we're not going to be able to continue to do the things that we were used to doing, but I will find things for us to do. And as long as you're okay with that, no one's going to lose an hour's worth of pay for however long this thing goes on. Now, nobody knew that I took a pay cut. It was just a matter of me making sure that I was keeping money in the bank. Typically, a good business person will pay everybody, pay all your bills, look at the end of the month and say, what is a reasonable amount for me to take home this month to pay my own bills? So nobody knew that I was doing it. It wasn't something I was waving a banner and saying, thanks to me, you're all keeping your job. But what was interesting was coming out of COVID, I was exhausted. We went through a really, really difficult time, but we kept the business going. We stayed profitable. Everybody stayed employed. And I just did not feel any gratitude whatsoever. It was almost like this expectation of, well, you're the boss. It's up to you to figure out how you're going to keep us employed. Meanwhile, we're looking around, we're seeing all these other businesses are laying people off. They're shutting down entirely because they didn't have a financial foundation to be able to lean back on if they needed to. They didn't have the ability or the vision to pivot into different resources or services, which is very much what we did. And I felt a pretty high level of resentment. And that was one of the things that sort of triggered for me, maybe it's time for me to think about, selling the company.